and welcome to Wise Up on Air. I'm Damian Kaspauer, Software Product Manager here at Audiokinetic. Thanks for tuning in today. We have an exciting episode of what we hope is an interesting window into using Wise interactive audio. If you're new to Wise, this is going to be a cool episode. We've got a lot of fun stuff in store for you. We're going to talk about some news, go over some community spotlight stuff that's been happening out there, and then dig into this idea of Wise as a sound source. I'll introduce a couple of special guests here in a minute. But first I wanted to talk about some cool things that have been happening here at Audiokinetic. Hey, good to see you in the chat. Thanks for joining in. If you missed it, or if you're interested, we did episode 2 of our Wise plugins series. This is a series that attempts to demystify and provide an access point to using Wise plugins, writing your own Wise plugins, coding them from scratch with the help of the tools and pipeline that we have in place. So everything from the simple volume control and fader that we build during episode 1 and 2 to whatever is needed in your pipeline to unlock the creativity of making sound dance in real time. Another cool feature here recently is that our live streams have been empowered with auto captioning. So on YouTube, if you go to our Audiokinetic channel, there's a captioning system now that will give you closed captioning automatically, and that can be localized across, I think it's almost 60 different languages. And so no matter where you are in the world and what language you understand best, you can access all of our video content. It's pretty cool. We got a new release of Wise 2021.1 coming up in March, and so stay tuned for that. I wanted to give you a sneak peek at the new splash screen for that. So I don't know about everyone else out there, but on the daily back in my development days, I would see this when launching Wise, and I don't know, it's been a while since we've updated. So here's a sneak peek at that new splash screen coming to Wise 21.1. Dun, 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 dun. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Was that fun? I don't know. I'm having fun over here. And with that, I just wanted to shine the light on a community video for the Pathless. This is Austin Wintory detailing interactive music in the Pathless. And it's a fantastic game made by Giant Squid, folks who brought you Abzu in the past. And Austin does a great job of breaking down how the score is dynamically and reactively working in the Pathless. Again, this is a collaboration between Austin as the composer and Stephen Green, helping to tie that together under the hood with Wise and really bring deep emotion and interactivity to that experience. So we'll get links into the comments section on this video, so be sure to check that out. And thanks, Austin, Annapurna, and Giant Squid, Steve Green, for putting this together. It's a really special video that brings interactive music into an accessible format. So thanks for that. And with that, I think it's time to get down to it. I'd like to introduce Our two guests for today. Hello, thanks for joining me. How's everyone doing?
Good.
So
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm here today with Ressa Schwartzwald and PDX. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves here. And Ressa, how's it going? It's evening
yeah,
time in
okay.
Germany, right?
That's the Netherlands, yeah, and this is evening right now.
Excellent, excellent.
uh, so yeah, I'm Ressa. I work at Tiny Build as audio producer, which means the manager, which wouldn't hesitate to make assets at times, implement them, script something in Unity, for example. And I got into interactive music nearly 11 years ago. I began with making sounds for casual games and social games, and a big game called Legends of Isenwald. I've actually made the whole soundtrack for it in medieval style, and then it just went along, and now I'm here making all this stuff for Arduino and Wise.
Oh, and it's been really cool to see your development process in that. I know we're going to unpack some of the cool things you've been doing with Arduino and Wise, and and a lot of it has a musical performance aspect to it. So I guess I'm interested. When did your journey to music begin? Like, do you have some early experiences, or like, did you start playing the piano at where did it start?
Yeah, I started playing piano when I was 5, I think. I wasn't supposed to get into the musical school because I was too small. I lived in Belarus this time. I'm from Belarus, actually. And I made my mother just put me into the musical school, into the zero class, so I could learn to play piano and stuff. And that was time I began to create catchy tunes, like when I was 5 or 6 years.
Awesome.
Then, yeah, then I went to the musical school. I did stuff which every pianist does. Then, when I was nearly 16 or 17, I decided to pursue my career as a singer in a metal band, but it never went through. Yeah. Anyway, I learned to make arrangements, musical arrangements in Guitar Pro. So that was my first DAW to make MIDI compositions. Yeah, and I tried to make tracks for my metal bands, but one day my friend mm, tried to get me to play a role in her film for the festival. It was like indie film, very short and very lame. So yeah, I played a role there, and I also decided to make a soundtrack, and the guys were okay with it. So I made several themes, and one of the guys in our group was a game developer. So he just asked me to join their um, project, and that was Legends of Isenwald. That was my first big project in game development, which got me my work. That's the start.
Excellent story. Great arc and transition, and I love that it organically happened through this pursuit of sound and music and the passion resulting in what we're going to talk about today coming up, which is that intersection of sound, music, and interactivity. And you're not. We'll, we'll save what that means for your presentation. But it's great to have you here today, and thanks so much for sharing the story. Uh,
Thank you for having me.
yeah. Another piano player in the room, I just have to say, but please, PDX, great to have you here today. Why don't you introduce yourself? You could even tell us when you started playing music for the first time.
As luck would have it, I have a little presentation for that. Good morning. My name is Peter Drescher, but you can call me PX. That's my gamer tag, code name, and call sign. I've been producing audio content, implementation, and code for games and mobile devices for 25 years now. My Pro Tools project studio called Twittering Machine, currently located in the Bay Hills of San Francisco. Welcome. Good.
Ta-da!
I started out as a piano player, at one point traveling around the United States and Europe with Joe Louis Walker and the Boss Talkers, a blues band that was the opening act for Huey Lewis and the News on the Hard at Play tour. But life on the road is bumpy and not very lucrative. So in 1992, I bought a Mac 512, taught myself Lightspeed C, wrote a couple of demo programs, a digital pitch pipe and an Etch-a-Sketch simulator, and sent cold resumes to every audio-related software company I could find, looking for an entry-level programming job, and got one response from a guy who'd been in the audience at my last Huey Lewis gig. Coincidence or conspiracy? That company created a software synthesizer that controlled sample playback using MIDI data. The system evolved into the Beatnik audio engine, and I provided music and sound effects in that format for a variety of PC games and websites. Later, I became principal sound designer at Danger, makers of the T-Mobile Sidekick, which had licensed Beatnik as the audio engine. We used it to produce system sounds, ringtones, and mobile game soundtracks. Since then, I've been an audio director at Microsoft, an audio engineer at Kixeye, senior audio engineer at Magic Leap, and as an independent contractor, worked on a variety of projects for Telltale Games, ArenaNet, and most recently, the Halo Master Chief Collection on Steam for 343 and Formosa. In between paid gigs, I tend to work on personal creative projects that demonstrate interesting interactive audio techniques, which brings us to today's conversation.
Awesome. Great overview. And I think I need to ask the question that is probably burning everyone tuned in right now in the chat is, what's your favorite Huey Lewis song?
Well, it's funny you say that. One of the things I learned on that tour, and it's actually an important lesson that I've carried throughout my career, is every show, we do our thing, we get our stuff off, and Huey would get up there and he would play Power of Love as the encore, and I watched him do it like 30 times in a row. And this is like 15 years later, after the hit. And yet every time he did it, out there, he was having fun, he was having a great time. It was like, it was like the first time he ever played it, and I'm so happy to play it for you. And the lesson there is, you got to have fun doing whatever you do. He was out there having fun. If you're not having fun, you ain't doing it right. And so I took that in, I still think about that sometimes, like, and partly because of, the stuff I'm doing right now, these are toys. These are things that are fun to play with. And if you're not having fun, particularly in a creative environment, you ain't doing it right.
Absolutely words to live by.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We got Power of Love from Bridge in the chat. He's amping that up. Another shout out to you in the chat. Great message. Great message today to start us off on this journey into this idea of Wwise as not just a runtime engine to play back sound in response to a game, but actually a real-time source for both sound design and composition. And I think what's really interesting to me is you both kind of came at this from different directions, and so I'm super excited to show the two sides of how you've both approached this. And we're going to start with you, PDX. Let's talk a little bit about Pixel Sound.
Okay, so Pixel Sound was inspired, kind of, by this program called Photo Sounder. And Photo Sounder is a lovely sound design tool. I've seen people use it a bunch. And it basically, you put up a picture, whatever picture you like. Uh, it scans the screen, and then it's got a synthesizer built in that allows you to make all kinds of interesting sounds with it. And I remember when I saw it, I said, why do I need to learn another synthesizer? I've got Wwise right here. It's the most powerful synthesizer I know of. So I, just to see what would happen, and again, kind of to play around with it, I built this thing where you can, in Unity, where you can put up any picture you like and draw on the picture, and whatever pixel you're pointing at, the color values, red, green, blue, and grayscale, will set RTPCs in Wwise and allow you to control the event using your mouse. So we can play the video if you like.
Awesome. That sets us right up for this. And let's roll that.
Roll tape, as they say on TV.
Right. Now. Cool.
So these are done kind of along the line of Mad's 1 minute Wwise tutorial, which I love.
Yeah.
So it gives you a quick overview of what's going on. And if you want to go back and study in detail, you can pause it.
It's fantastic.
It's fun.
Yeah. It's getting kind of weird.
Here's the right business. So this is a new one.
Great. So link there for folks who want to dig into it a little bit deeper. And I should note that we've also updated the blog that you wrote for the Audio Kinetic blog with links and descriptions for these.
Yeah, and to the next one as well.
Yeah.
So
what did we just hear? Like, I know you unfolded it clearly in real time, but give us the play-by-play real quick.
well, basically, there's a bunch of the project has a bunch of test and sample events that it comes with. I did add after just recently, I added another function which was black and white, so it only responds to grayscale. It doesn't respond to color, which is, I don't know if that's interesting or not, but I wanted to do that. And it also tracks XY position. So in that last set, you can do exactly what you can do with the Rolly digit. I put it together in like 10 minutes because the Rolly light pad does the same thing.
Sure.
And I'm like, I can do that. I got here on my Mac,
So you're just using the touchpad on your Mac in the same way.
Same way. The only thing that's missing is the light show. Ooh,
Sure.
darn. So you don't actually even have to respond to a photo. You can just move the mouse and it'll do. And I have like a little synthesizer thing I got from barbecue years ago, which is the same thing. Well, it's not an uncommon technique.
Yep.
X and Y. You can do two different, settings. But in the same way that you can do, high up is higher pitched, and this is volume or something.
Yep.
Same thing with photos and colors.
Yep.
Test There's some test patterns that come with the thing, kind of like blue to black thing, and you can like just test your blue sounds, kind of stuff. And the other thing that I did was I connected the RTPCs, which are controlled by the Unity project, to a series of switches, a 10-step switch section, so that you can use these colors to trigger sounds, like for that alien chatter thing.
Yep.
That's like when you hit a green spot, it'll play. Actually, you hit a green spot of a certain color level.
Yeah.
It'll sound as opposed to that sound kind of thing. And that allows you to do all kinds of crazy. You can make some really crazy stuff. And you're right. It does get weird. You can do some really weird stuff with it.
And I think that's part of the fun, right? Is that you and so at the start you feed it a bunch of samples, and there's a question from the chat a little bit about the process of getting the sounds, from, let's say, microphone sample library through the DAW into Wwise. The question is, is there a lot of back and forth taking place? Do you kind of already know what that content should be and sound like before you prep it for the system, or?
Well, yes and no. The development of the sound for the events, you do just like you would do any Wwise event. I'm not going to do a Wwise tutorial here because, you use Wwise. There you go. So whatever sound you want to do, whatever event you want to do, however you want the sound to respond.
Yep.
Yeah. The trick is, not the trick, but the fun part is you don't really know how the event will respond to whatever picture you throw in there.
Yeah.
And like you can, the color wheel, the default color wheel is good for testing: green, red, blue, white. You're all good. But you can put in a picture of your dog. You can put in a picture of whatever you want, and mouse over it and see what happens. And there's a couple of test patterns in there too, which are just colors. You can like mouse over the color, and red will play one thing, blue will play something else, purple will play them both. And you can, again, it's fun to play with. It's like scribbling with sound, sort of.
Totally.
And so you don't really wait. And it's also, not unrelated to game audio, in which you have a whole bunch of sounds, and you don't really know. I mean, you have some idea of how they will sound in the game, but it's undetermined. You can't really predict it. That's kind of the whole point.
Exactly. And I think that like the fun of putting a picture in, having a sample set loaded with all of the properties and parameterizations, and then what happens? That kind of joy of discovery and play, I think, is so inspiring from a design standpoint. And I know that we're going to talk a bunch more in Ressa's presentation about harnessing that in real time as well. There's a link to the blog that you wrote in the chat for anyone who's following along and wants to jump off there. We'll have it in the comments afterward. And that whole project is available for people from the Unity and Wwise project that you created, and to start exploring and playing with.
Yeah,
but
and that's kind of the whole.
It doesn't end there, though. Like, that was just the start for you.
That's the start. But I will say that's kind of the point. It's like, download the Unity project, play around with the Wwise things, put your own pictures in, put your own Wwise stuff in. The point is to play with it. It's a toy. And if you come up with a sound that happens to work for you in a certain situation, great. There is a Wwise recorder plug-in effect on the master bus, so you can it'll just record what you want, or you can use audio hijack or OBS or whatever OBS, is that right? To capture the sound of the game. Again,
awesome.
Download it, play with it, have fun. That's the whole point.
Totally.
So, but that wasn't enough for me. I wasn't finished having fun. So one of the things I had the thought of was, okay, how about instead of moving the mouse, how about instead of picture, you video? You set a position and the video plays underneath it, and that'll do a similar sort of thing. So that's what vPixel or video pixel sound was like, or is. Okay. Nope.
Yep. Yep.
No. Here.
Same.
I can't see the video right now. On the Twitch.
Yeah, just feed that thing anything.
Right. Any movie will do it now.
Right, and then you've got a way to swap out sample sets.
Well, this is just and you can see how it changes the mix. You put a black mix. You can change the speed.
Wow. Yeah. What a great way to quickly generate some content or transients or guide.
Maybe, yeah. So again, the idea is to play with.
Yeah.
Now I took those video clips just from just whatever you put on your screen,
Yeah.
record it, put it in, and you can do record static images. You know the color squares is just the picture. I just did a QuickTime movie of it for like a second. It loops and it stays there.
Yep.
Also a good way of testing your event to see what effect yellow has on it, what effect blue has on it, etc. But yeah, again, the point is, whatever you want to put in there, it'll interact with the Wwise event. Now,
we got Etienne in the chat calling it Synthesizer.
Synthesizer. There you go.
Wow.
Or something, yeah. One other thing I added for the Pixel is I also added state processing. So not only does it do the real-time RTPCs, there you go. It also will set states on a scale of 0 to 10, so that 50% blue will do a 50% blue state.
Yeah.
You can control events that way, which has some advantages to doing just the RTPCs. You can use the event state processing to do other interesting stuff, particularly music stuff. One of the other things I did with that, which I didn't put it in the video much, is you can select multiple points and average them, or you can select the entire frame and do the average, like the average brightness of that frame.
Yeah.
So you could conceivably use it to, like you say, generate sounds for a soundtrack, and you could even conceivably craft a event for a particular sequence of sounds.
Sure. I
But
I thought
kind of a whip.
I,
There's probably better ways to do that. It's more about having fun playing with the video than it is about using it
automating.
as a sound design tool.
Although I thought the anime example was really sharp. Like,
The anime, well, I chose that one in particular because it was like a lot of dark and then bright flashes.
yeah,
Um, you thought about uh, in the in the code, one could keep track of the average level, and then when it does that, you could, at the top of it. But it turned out that just tracking the brightness level worked just fine.
yeah,
In the
yeah,
things, always the question between, do you do it in the code or do you do it in the event? And sometimes the two are not unrelated.
exactly.
You two are not unrelated.
Exactly. And again, like the play aspect of it uh,
That's the whole
is
point.
really
And
joyful.
again, downloadable from the site. Download it, make your own movies, make your own events, have fun.
Excellent. What a
Yeah, I think it's a great tool for mapping sounds for the trailers, as you can just map all the peaks and
Maybe
then synchronize the sounds without any problems.
one of the things I always say about the difference between interactive and linear audio, because linear for like a trailer soundtrack, because that linear is just so easy. I mean, it's just like every time I linear soundtrack, I'm like, wow, this movie guys haven't made. This is like so easy. You got a sequence of events, you make the sound, you plug it in, you mix it, done. Whereas interactive, and like you say, hey, if you're doing this for an event, there's a lot of things involved with that. And the other thing too is that if you craft an event specifically for a sequence of sound, so like when the thing goes blue, I want to play this sound. That's fine and lovely and good luck. But then what happens? What happens when you put another movie in? It might make something really interesting. You never know. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
yeah. It reminds me of taking a MIDI file and just swapping out sample sets. It's like,
Right.
yeah,
Make the drums play piano. That is always an interesting thing.
totally. Cool. Well, we got one more to roll here, and I'm just gonna. Do you want to set it up at all?
Let me set it up for a second. So this is one of these ideas that I had rattling around in my head literally for years. I mean, it was like it's been in there for like a long time. And sometimes when you get an idea in your head, you just gotta pull it out. It's like pulling a splinter sometimes. Um, when I was at Magic Leap, one of the things we wanted to answer a question of how much CPU does a spatialized voice use for CPU per spatialized voice. Um, so I put together a Unity project that had a bunch of sound sources spinning around a central axis, and I could do 5, 10, 15, 25, 50 voices, and then I'd run it on the device, and I had another app that would measure the amount of CPU, and I could make lovely little graphs, and it was pretty cool. And it turned out that 10 spatialized voices on the mobile, wearable device, no problem, not a problem. If you got up to like 25, you start to get a little bit of a hit. And my attitude was like, if you got 25 spatialized sources on a mobile app that you're wearing on your head, you've done the audio wrong. You don't need that many. You got one over here, you got one over there, you're good. The rest of it can be just regular stereo or tracking. Anyway, in order to be sure that I was measuring correctly, each each source had its own file that it played, and I made the files of a text-to-speech synthesizer saying the numbers from 1 to 50 in Japanese. So like each, and they would just repeat each, And so when I played it with 10, 15, 20 voices, the cacophony was just insane. People would walk by when I was listening to this in the headphones and go, "What the hell are you?" Because it was this really like, yeah, I'm not listening to it. I'm testing, But the idea of what would happen if you didn't use just random sound, if you put some sound design into it. And so I put together this thing, I'm calling it a spatialized granular synthesis. granular synthesis is a technique whereby lots of little pieces of sound are played in various ways together that create an overall sound that you recognize. Oh, that's a sound. And the example I like to use is the Star Trek transporter sound. That's like a real granular synthesizer kind of sound. It's not an uncommon technique. I've used it many times over the years. So anyway, I put this together in Unreal using blueprints, and the thing that I just wanted to say was like, it really worked. It was like, wow, the thing about these experiments is you don't really know if they're going to be cool or if they're going to work or what's really going to happen until you actually have it done. You do all the work, it sounded like code, you tell them like, and then you finally hear it for the first time. It's like, wow, that actually worked.
And that's definitely how I feel. Seeing the result of your and Ressa's work, it's like the result is so empowering and so fun and lands in such a beautiful space. Let's see where this experiment landed for you. All right, so grains, and we also have the Soundseed grains, Granular Synthesizer and Wwise.
There you go. So one point is I did this in Wwise 2019, but I did try a version with the beta.
Yeah.
And I didn't go very far because I post it with something that worked. But I do kind of want to try those as audio objects.
Totally.
Right? Yeah, and so each of those objects will be, and ironically, part of the reason I did it was a comment that you made on the blog about who's going to be the first person to overload, do too many objects for the CPU to handle. And I'm like, oh, I can do that. I got an app just exactly designed to do that.
Yeah, we need people to break things all the time, right? Push those limits, and ultimately, like, you can feed any sound source into that project and get that kind of dynamic effect.
Right, and if you'll download the Wwise project, you'll find that the sounds, the grains, they're all really short. Like the bees, that's not a recording of a thing of bees. That's like 15 seconds, and 3 different types, one for each color ball.
Yeah.
The rain's the same thing. The rain is a bunch of short rain samples where the green ones and the blue ones are like the drips and the red ones are something else, and then they all mix together. And the point is, you not only will it create a non-repeating or non-repetitive sound source, you don't even have to really use it as in surround. If you wanted to use it to create 4 different variations of an event, you got 4 channels. One, pick one or pick all 3, or 4. So it's useful. I think it's more useful than some of the other stuff I was doing. The question becomes: is it more useful to do the thing and record a single 6-channel wave file and use that in your game?
Okay.
Or how many voices does that take?
Yeah.
You have 15 voices available that you can use to send around to make that kind of spatialized sound in your game. It's up to you.
Well, and that's a big part of interactive audio in the first place, is just managing your resources, balancing those trade-offs. The value of having the tiny little discrete samples played back, increasing your voice count, versus the idea of optimizing it to a multi-channel single voice playback, right?
Yeah. The other thing too is whatever. It can get kind of complicated from the CPU point of view, but it's these days with the power of a PC or a console, not that important anymore. It's like more important what it sounds like to you.
Yep.
What you're looking for, the ability, the need to do things small or tight or whatever. It's always kind of in the back of my mind. Particularly coming from the mobile gaming background, it's like that's like the paramount. How much sound can you get out of this much space? But anyway.
Yeah, cool. Again, incredible work. I can feel the joy in the creation that this is the result of. It's a really cool project. It's great that you've shared that with folks so that they can experiment, try it out, and maybe even use it in their works.
One thing I did note, or a decision I made when I was making the project, is I used it as a surround, but not spatialized.
Yep.
Right. Now, if you play it on a stereo with a spatialization like the Atmos or the Dolby Headphone X thing, you'll get some interesting effects. It's really kind of astonishing. Like, wow, that was interesting. But if you put it on your surround system, it's cool as well. But one of the things that I noticed that was like when I was looking at the new in the 2021 version in the data, a lot of spatialization, and this is true. We were talking about dealing with this in Magic Leap as well. One of the things that makes a sound spatialized or spatializable, if that's a word, is reflections. It's like you're in a room and you're hearing the reflection off the wall, you're hearing off that wall, and first you get the ITD, the intertemporal distance between your ears, and so there's a phase difference there. But another way that you can really tell where something is in the room is by the reflections off the wall. And in this project, there's no walls. So I realized maybe spatializing this and putting the spatialization effort into it like kind of important because there's nothing to bounce it off again. Now, it would be interesting to see what happened if you did put it in a room and see if that made any difference. Kind of the smushy fact. I don't think that would make. I don't think it might affect, but it wouldn't be more spatialized than surround sound.
Right. And one of the things we showed off in the 2021 beta Ask Me Anything live stream was actually objects using Reflect with those. This is the Wise Reflect plugin, and those Reflect bounces off of geometry being created as audio objects as well.
Right. If I redo this thing for 2021, I might try, put it in some walls,
Yeah.
see what happens. Somebody once said HRTF is just an effect, and I agree with this completely. It's like it's not important in some way important to make it spatialized. You only use the spatialization techniques if it somehow affects the, the storyline or the emotional
Yeah.
you're trying to make with that sound.
Yeah. Exactly. So let's pause the discussion there, because I'd like to pick that thread up after hearing a little bit more about Ressa's work with the Robotic Orchestra, and if I'm right, it piggybacks on some of this work. Can you talk about that a bit as an introduction, and then start us on our journey?
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to speak about the theremin which I made on the basis of PDX's project first?
However you'd like to proceed. I do know that there is a link there, so as long as we touch on it, I think we're good.
Okay, I'll just start with the beginning.
Cool.
What is Robotic Orchestra? Some time ago, I decided to dive deeper in the interactive audio, so I wanted to create a project somehow related to my work that would be entertaining enough not to get the burnout from work and both my project, and educational on the other side. A project that would afford me some fun while I can do some research and development. It had to be fun, and actually when I made the design document for it, I wrote it like it should be fun. If there is no fun, just there is a swear word, sorry.
We're right back
so
to it. Like, if it's not fun, you're not doing it right. So it sounds like you're
yes,
doing it
completely.
right.
Yeah. So this was how I came up with the idea of building the robotic orchestra. It is designed to be a machine which responds to my input and reworks that input, randomizes it, and gives it out. So the art, the music becomes half mine and half the machine's. Musical pieces made by Robotic Orchestra are supposed to be not just musical compositions, but systems from which different compositions could be derived. So this is like a live looping thing, just
Yeah.
to make music, to make live music.
It's a collaborator, right? It's a band member.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with the AI, but if I was, I would do that. Yeah, so I began with that huge design document with all the links to everything I wanted to research and develop. And I had several ideas about the input. So my first input was complete control, with which I work every day. And it was the time I needed to make a system for the game I was working on. And it was actually the car engine. And I tried to make the load and offload mode controlled by the CC64, by the sustain pedal. So there's a video of that. Gentlemen, could you show it, please?
Yes. Can you explain load and offload just really briefly?
When you push this pedal, the car accelerates and it's load. And when you stop pushing, it is offload. Something like that.
Perfect. Okay, rolling video. Here we go.
Yeah, so it's me making video with the phone.
Gotcha. You got the pedal down on the
driving
on the floor.
Yeah. And I'm driving this imaginary car and having a lot of fun. Actually, this system got into the game.
Awesome. Cool. That turned out great. And was that using a synthesizer or just a Wwise synth as the source?
Yeah, there were several things. One is instances with several oscillators
Hmm.
inside, and actually I made blend containers from those. And later I also added some recorded sounds to those things one and a tone generator. So I made a lot of experiments with that.
Awesome.
But basically, it was once the synth one instance in the beginning. So yeah, this prototype was made with the one synth one.
Yeah, and that's right out of the box. Wise Synth 1, drop it in, you're controlling it with the pedal, and I know we're going to see a little bit more about how you built that bridge between physical um, devices and Wise.
Yeah, actually, it was a lot of fun. So I decided not to use the controllers that look like pianos. So I tried to use the Playtronica synthesizers, Playtronica MIDI controllers, Playtron and Touch Me, and I have a demo about both of them. Could you
Great.
demo,
Here
please?
we go.
Start one of the, yeah. Here I play the Belarusian song Kupalinka, using some vegetables and fruit and cutlery.
Great, and you have a whole YouTube channel devoted to Ressa and the Robotic Orchestra, where there's a longer form video of this one that details the process.
Yeah, definitely. I have several tutorials on my YouTube channel right now, and I'm gonna make more because it seems like people love them.
I mean, who
So
doesn't love
this one-
a Raspberry keyboard?
It was tasty, actually. I ate all of those vegetables after the session, so
What I call music.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We're getting a lot of folks who are super excited about it in the chat, and it looks like
But the food are just
not only
the controllers.
yeah, maybe it's lunchtime for them. I don't know. But literally we're talking about the hardware bridge between in your case capacitive touch, the ability to make a connection with capacitance between yourself and, in this case, fruit and vegetables, and using that through some kind of bridge to Wise as your sampler, as your playback mechanism.
Yeah, actually, this one wasn't too difficult to make, as I just bound those MIDI controllers, which were pre-mapped about them to Wise, and I put a lot of objects into the Soundcaster and played those objects with my controller. So there is no problem actually with that. I didn't need any MIDI bridging like with Arduino later, and no game engine like with my other project. And just talking spoilers there.
Well, and we've got a great blog post from you coming out to the Audio Kinetic blog soon that talks about your process of connecting these things between Wise and these external controllers. So thanks in advance for writing that, and folks should take a look in the comments for that. We'll have a link to it as soon as it's published, and it's great to have that as a resource.
Thank you. Actually, it's super basic. It's the basis of MIDI controlling in Wise, but I decided to start with that because without that, there would be no Arduino controlling and other stuff. So yeah, that is the super basic thing. And I also used another Playtronica controller. I tried to control the RTPCs with that, but I failed. And I was just very unhappy about that on Twitter. But then the problem was that it transmitted MIDI note messages, and I needed it to transmit MIDI CC. So I tried different things. I tried to make a pure data plugin as there were different tutorials on our Kinetic website, and there was 1 minute Wise by Matt Moretti about that. So I tried just different schemes of doing that, but I failed because Wise authoring API wouldn't recognize MIDI plugin as a source, and MIDI plugin as an effect doesn't make sense because the effect plugin works with the audio stream, audio source,
exactly,
but not the MIDI one. Yeah, so finally I just found a program called Boom MIDI Translator, which allowed me to make this to convert this before even getting to Wise authoring. And there is a video about that.
Great.
Number 3, Damien.
Here we go.
Yeah, it's actually part of my tutorial on YouTube. How I tried to get it working. There is not the PC.
Awesome.
And I got this.
And there's that little controller.
It's really worked. But there is a problem that MIDI notes transmitted by TouchMe are like between 49 and 52 numbers, 49 and 52. So I had to map them.
Yep, so you're
stretch it,
adjusting the range of the gain parameters so that...
Yeah, so that it influence it better.
Yeah, I see how the rate of change is much broader now that you've adjusted the scale of that gain parameter.
Yeah, completely.
And when we say RTPC, we're talking real-time parameter control for those folks who aren't down with the acronyms yet. I just want to make sure that people are aware that is the mechanism that we use to control things in real time using parameters. Nice work on that. It's really fun.
Yeah, sure, but it wasn't enough fun for me, so I decided to try microcontrollers like Arduino. So I ordered the beginner's kit with the book with the projects, and I was trying to do a project per night after my work, just having fun. And once I found this live theremin there, and I just decided to connect it with Wise, so it would be more interesting than just playing it with Arduino and get the output from the buzzer. So I made this live theremin. There's a video on it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay,
yeah,
and so the sound that we're hearing is from Wise. You're using a synth
and
one.
you can see the RTPCs there in the background.
Totally.
I'm using the potentiometer to control volume and the light, the photo transistor to control the pitch.
Got it. So if I understand right, you're using the Arduino as the bridge between the potentiometer control and the photoresistor, the resistor measuring the light, and Arduino is being used to convert that to MIDI information in Wise. Is that correct?
Not that much. Actually, the data gotten from the potentiometer and the phototransistor goes into Arduino, and we get some numbers from the Arduino. They get to something called the, I forgot how it is called, something like a debug log in Unity.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, from this thing, the data gets into the MIDI bridge. There are several programs for MIDI bridging. I actually have a thorough tutorial on that.
Great.
The one program is called hairless MIDI. The second one is called MIDI loop MIDI. And so the data goes through those MIDI bridges into Wise. And we have that those numbers from Arduino control the RTPCs in Wise.
Gotcha. So
It's a bit complicated.
It's from hardware, both the potentiometer and the resistor, to the Arduino, which sends in a bunch of raw numbers, values. Those values are then converted using this MIDI bridge software you're talking about. And that finally lands in Wise as real-time parameters.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That sounds really difficult, but it doesn't require any game engines and any other software. So you can just take the Arduino, run those MIDI bridges, and map all these to Wise, bind all these to the real-time parameter controls.
That's great. And like you said, you have some tutorials on your YouTube channel to walk folks through that. So that's awesome, as well as the article has been released. So link to that is in the chat. So folks can jump right in and start building their own bridges between the real world and Wise. Question from the chat: how did you get all of those devices to register in Wise as a MIDI control surface? And yeah, the Fruit synth and controller synth are super fascinating. So do you want to talk a bit about that? I know you cover it in your blog as well, but to answer that question, how did you get those devices to register in Wise?
You just get to the control surfaces, and you find those control surfaces in this window in Wise, and then you can bind them in the control surface binding window. So it's really easy.
Yeah, control surfaces, if you've never played around with them in Wise, that is your access point for getting this external information from a control surface, whether it is a keyboard controller, some other kind of real-time device, or a mixing desk of some kind. Like whatever your control surface is, you can use the control surface to, as Ressa said, bind those properties to different parts of Wise, and it's a great way to interact.
Yeah, and it's really easy. Like you touch a key or a potentiometer, and all this data gets into Wise, and it sees it immediately.
Cool. And now this starts to be where we have some overlap between what we saw from PDX with pixel sound and video pixel sound, because now you're starting to kind of come across the same concepts where you're measuring values in the real world.
Yeah, completely. So I was doing those projects from the Arduino book, and once I came across a project called Color Mixing Lamp, which contained actually 3 phototransistors covered with different gels, like red, green, or blue, and a lamp which gathered all the data from the phototransistors, like the amount of light gotten into any of those. And it was lit with one of the colors, with gradient of the colors. So I saw it, and it was the time I found the Pixel Sound project from PDX on the Audio Kinetic website. So I was like, wow, that's it. I should make an RGB theremin from it. And I really made it. But I decided that MIDI bridging is too complicated for that. So I decided to take PDX's project in Unity and modify it a bit.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
And it's that kind of knowledge share and cross collaboration that is just beautiful to me. I'm so glad to hear that that has happened. We have a short video on that. I'm going to roll that.
Yeah. So here it is. And I'm trying to light those photo transistors with my phone. And there should be some sound. And this lamp actually works as a debug log here. So I can see that the photo transistors work as they're supposed to. It works better in the darkness.
It's magical. Fantastic implementation. So you've got the 3 LEDs, each their own color. You've got what you were saying, the control LED down at the bottom that's lighting up in response, and the value of those 3 LEDs. What is being output to Wwise at that point? Is it just a number?
Yeah, the numbers go to Unity.
Okay.
And then they toggle the RTPCs and go to Wwise, and Wwise is an output for the sound, so we can hear it as it is. And all the RTPCs, the Wwise project and the Unity project, are made by PDX. I only modified the script a bit and made this region from Arduino to Unity.
Well, not to be too modest, but it's just a one-to-one relationship. When you get the pixel, the information you get is red 0 to 1, blue 0 to 1, green 0 to 1. Map that to an RTPC, you're done. It's like, yeah. Ironically, a physicist programmer friend of mine once showed me that there's actually a correlation between not only, like we say, the 0 to 1 range, but actual nanometers of light you can map to frequencies of sound. I'm like, really? Wow, that's kind of cool. So 500 nanometer light wave equals 500 hertz. It's like a B flat or something. And it was like you could actually do a one-to-one map between the lights and the sound frequencies. I'm like, that's kind of cool. I may have to try that sometime.
Nanometer synth coming soon.
And nanosynth, yeah, nanometer. Actually, what's the light? Like hertz is for sound. There's another one for light. Anyway.
Outside of my sphere of experience.
Physics.
Yeah, actually, I adjusted RTPCs a little bit, so they are not from 0 to 1, but from 0 to 100. So it's more like, in real life. And the scale, which you're talking about, PDX, I actually made that with LightThermin, but this was another version of the LightThermin I made with the Arduino sensor kit. It also has the photo transistor, it has the potentiometer, so basically it's the same, but I also mapped it to Unity, and there is a video about that. I have a lot of videos today.
It's great.
Oh, that's me, yeah.
So your finger is on a controller?
On the photo transistor.
The photo transistor, yeah. Great.
And there is a scale, which I pre-made.
Excellent.
There is a blend container, actually, with some sounds which respond to the amount of light gotten into the photo transistor, but it is scaled. And it can be scaled to any scale you want.
Yeah, and you are always in tune with that scale, and it's the amount of light that changes what note in that scale is being played.
Yeah, completely.
This is something that, as a guitar player, if only I always hit the right notes, that would be sometimes good.
The thing when I saw this thing Ressa done, not only was like, wow, synergy across the planet. I mean, that was kind of like just amazing to me anyway. The internet ain't cool. But the ability, so like there's been plenty of theremin implementations over the years. You can do it with a mouse. I've done it myself for ringtones and stuff, kind of stuff.
Sci-fi.
Very sci-fi, Star Trek theme kind of sound. But what you can do, and what you've done using Wwise, is the ability to make, cut the gradations into scales. And this to me was just this to me was, oh yeah, that's the cool thing. That's really cool, because this is how harps work. This is how a lot of classical instruments work. Is you push a bunch of pedals and then you play in this scale. And then you push the other pedals and you play some other scale. And you push them again and you play in the first scale. I mean, this is how they play chromatic. This is how harpists play chromatic music. There's an Arabic instrument called the qanun, which is basically it's kind of like a zither, but it's flat. And the strings set on a fulcrum, or what do you call it, a bridge that you can flip back and forth. So natural, half tone down, half tone up. And this is in Arabic music. There's this thing called the maqam, which has different variations of half tones and whole tones, and it has that kind of specifically Arabic sound to it. You could do that with this. You could and one of the things that the other players do is they'll like be playing in one maqam, and then they'll, with their left hand change all the bridges. It's really, they do it really fast. It's like kind of a and they're in a different maqam. It's kind of astonishing, and it's beautiful to listen to, particularly if you're listening to the gradations of tunings. And I've always wanted to. It's like that's hard to do. As a piano player, I hire a guy to tune my piano. I can't do that myself. But what Ressa's doing here is, you could wave your hand and play in different maqams and different keys. You could change the key at a switch by changing the switch in Wwise. Again, it's using Wwise as a synthesizer. That's a good idea. I like this idea.
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking of deploying all this stuff to a mobile device, and maybe try the camera of the mobile phone to work the same way. Because there are several synthesizers, there are several apps that work that way, but I want to build my own one using Wwise.
Awesome.
Yeah. And with this harp thing, actually, I could use Playtron, for example, to switch between all those scales, and then use the light theremin to control the pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I haven't done it yet. I'm thinking of maybe doing the whole thing in Unity.
Got it.
Because when the part of it is in Unity and the part of it is in Wwise, with MIDI bridging, it can be messy a bit.
Yeah, I can see how you would benefit from wrapping that all into one project. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, should we roll this last video then, talking about the sensor kit RTPCs?
Oh yeah. What was it about? Oh, it was just me having fun. I made the script based on PDX's script in my own Robotic Orchestra project in Unity and my own Robotic Orchestra project in Wwise. This time I was using my sources. And the thing is, I had different sensors. Not only the phototransistor and potentiometer and stuff, I also had that humidity and temperature sensor, and I mapped it to the RTPC as well. So yeah, this video is about that.
Wow.
Potentiometer.
Okay, so there's volumes coming in.
Yay.
The light sensor.
The phototransistor. Yep. It's working. As we can see in Unity, this is the disappeared here. Don't blow in there.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, if we had a theme for today's live stream, I would change it right now to, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. And you are both absolutely doing it right, as evidence from that last video, and just the joy, I think, expressed from all of these different ways of leveraging Wwise as a real-time sound source, number one. But number two, really trying to bring a kind of play and randomization, both, in the pixel sound example, from the screen-based visual aspect of getting that information into Wwise and using it as parameters, but then also, Ressa, in your experiments, leveraging external sources, right? The photoresistor, the fruit, capacitive touch, right? It's like all of the myriad ways that we can interact and generate sound, and from coming directly from Wwise as a synthesizer sampler. So really interesting stuff. I know a lot of folks who've been commenting in the chat are just like super floored and wowed by that. And again, thank you for making these resources available, writing blogs, publishing videos. Like, it's that spirit of sharing that I think kind of united you in this kind of shared goal of creating these systems for interaction. So nice work, and thanks for sharing that with us today.
It was fun to do. So when you're having fun, you ain't doing it right.
Yeah, it was real fun.
Yeah, so any parting thoughts on, where we go next with this? Things that you're thinking about to move it forward? Maybe you want to drop some ideas that other people want to run with, and maybe there's a thorn in your brain that you want someone else to pull out.
Well, I got one more thorn in my brain, which I've again thinking about this literally for years. When I was doing the SGS, I came across a $5 package. You can use like $5. Will generate murmuration. Now, I don't know if you know what a murmuration is. Right, the bird thing. So it'll do flocks of birds. It'll do schools of fish. It'll do, it's kind of like a particle generator, but murmuration is a thing that happens, and it's kind of an emergent behavior. You set up a thing, a set of rules, and then it just sort of happens. And if you've ever seen murmuration of starlings, it's just astonishing. It's like you can't even really wrap your head around. I have a hard time wrapping my head around how do they do that? How do they know where the edges are? It makes these amazing shapes. And I've always looked at that and gone, I wonder what that sound is. I wonder what you could use that. How could you use that to make sound? How could you use that to make music? How could you use that to make, anyway. So I'm doing this Unreal project. I'm like, and I'll look and look, for $5 I can do murmurations. So I have an idea in my head. Again, one of those little splinters. I don't know if it'll work or not. Having to do with the distance from the listener to the myriad thing, and apparently, you can have 50 or 100 of these things going at once, and maybe that's not going to tax the CPU, my fat PC. Look, I got to try that next. I don't know how that's going to fly out, but I got to try that.
And to me, what's really cool is that synchronicity, right? It's that real-time synchronicity. So step one is like, okay, well, let's put a video into Pixel Sound and have it capture the light value on the screen while that murmuration is happening, right? Step two is, okay, let's actually flock those and attach a sound to each of those in the SGS world and generate those generate that from the pattern of the
That would be
murmuration.
a granular synthesis approach.
Yep.
Each, yeah. I think that would end up being cacophony, actually. I mean, I'll give it a shot, but I'm not sure that'll actually work. What I think might be more interesting from a sonic point of view would be to be able to track the density from your viewpoint of the sound in a I don't know. I gotta play again. Gotta play around with
Yep.
it and see what happens.
Well, and where that goes next is right. You're, in an environment, a virtual environment. You're watching that happen, and now you have that interactivity, that dynamic play at runtime, where it's not just the playback of a video, and it's not just the playback of a simulation, but it's those things and the user's control and focus and perspective on it. And I think that that's where Wwise and a runtime audio example of that starts to become really exciting, because now you're leveraging that synchronicity between what's happening visually, even positionally or within the field of view, and tying that directly to, the sound in a way that is inexorably linked, right?
Yeah, actually, you just given me a good idea. Actually,
Perfect.
I may have to look into that. Yeah. Cool.
Meanwhile, on the hardware side of things, Ressa, what's next? Where do we go from here?
Now I'm in the middle of researching and developing some crazy thing, which requires, I wouldn't say hacking, but diving deeply into non-MIDI controller, which I'm gonna use to make an accordion. This is all I can say about this project.
Wow.
But it is super crazy. It is actually super crazy. But and the other idea I have that I must research the outputs a bit. I've thought about using maybe Bluetooth speakers as 5.1 system and 7.1 system, something like that. Yeah, so I'm going crazy.
I love it. Sounds fantastic. It's great to have both of yours energy and creativity here on Wise Up on Air. It's been an absolute joy. I'm having a lot of fun just being here with y'all. So thanks so much for your participation. Thanks for the great work that you've done with Wise and outside of that. Really value having you here today. I think that's a perfect place to land this morning, this evening, this afternoon, wherever you are. Hope that you have some fun today. I hope you find some joy, and I want to say thanks again for being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks, you. Thank you for having me.
All right.
It was real fun.
Totally. Okay, well, take care, and we'll see you next time on Wise Up on Air.